So there, I've had the opportunity to meet with OJK here in Jakarta. I was very impressed by the way OJK is putting in place a very rigorous framework for investment in sustainable development goals by the financial sector. And that includes green, it also includes other parts of the sector, developing the taxonomies, developing just generally speaking, the regulatory framework to finance in these areas. And that is going to help the market along. We've seen that in other countries. And if Indonesia moves forwards, creates a market, then as I mentioned before, it will also be possible to connect Indonesia's market with the global markets. And that will bring very deep pockets of funding into Indonesia, into these kinds of investments.
If we see from developed countries, for example, like Germany or the United States, what would be the amount of contribution of the private sectors in terms of development compared to our country?
You know, globally, the private sector creates 9 out of 10 jobs, and that is not going to change. So if perhaps the number one global priority over the coming years is to create jobs for the many entrants into the emerging market, labor markets, it's going to have to be the private sector that creates them. And that is not fundamentally different in Indonesia from advanced OECD economies.
In how many years do you see Indonesia is going there?
Well, I think Indonesia already has a very capable private sector. If over the coming years, just because of the sheer volume of the capital investments needed, there's a certain rebalancing towards private sector investment from the state sector, that is going to be very healthy. But we're not talking about a fundamental change in the nature of the economy. Indonesia has strong private corporates.
If we go back to the green financing, what would be the potential in Indonesia for us to be moving towards a more sustainable way of financing?
Well, I mentioned that our estimate for green financing needs between now and 2030 in Indonesia is about $450 billion. There's a significant amount of related to green buildings. It is about how to build so that you are very efficient in the use of resources. It has to do with renewable energy, of course. It has to do with how one organizes municipal transport. There are many different opportunities. The numbers there are very large, and either way you look at it, there's a big gap to be filled. I had the opportunity to talk to one of the governors of one of Indonesia's regions. I saw there was a very ambitious capital investment program for the coming years. That is a program in which the governor himself told me, if I do this with the public sector, I can maybe do 2, maybe 5 hospitals, to take an example. If I bring in the private sector, then I can do 20. And that same model you find in many other areas at the municipal level. Yeah.
What other programs would be interesting?
So you can look across areas in green. If we talk about green finance, there's scope for finance, adaptation finance in agriculture, for instance. One can look across countries, across regions, and see what solutions have been found elsewhere. In irrigation, in India, are there technologies that one can bring to Indonesia? For instance, in the circular economy, converting plastic back to energy, there are excellent technologies that have been developed elsewhere. They can be brought to Indonesia. So there's a very broad range of opportunities out there.